Well, joining me to discuss this is a journalist from London, Amina Taylor. It's good to have you join us on The World Now.
Hey, thank you so much. I guess we're still talking about Brexit, huh?
So, interestingly, we're still discussing Brexit, but you're looking at what happened just a few hours ago. You see the former Prime Minister, Theresa May, talking about the plans or the changes that Boris Johnson has made to the withdrawal agreement. What would you have to say? Are those concerns justified if you look at the adjustments that the new Prime Minister has made to the withdrawal agreement?
Well, the bottom line is, I mean, he turned it into what was called the backstop arrangement, into the Irish protocol. And that in itself was really just playing around with words, because what he did was kick this situation with Northern Ireland, with the rest of Ireland, into the long grass and say, we're not going to sort this out now. We're going to wait until we're out of the European Union, which technically happened on the 31st of January this year, and then come back and revisit this. But I think the Prime Minister is being rather disingenuous with some of those claims, because essentially they're trying to fiddle around with things that people thought had already been discussed, had already been signed off. And frankly, Brussels and those in Ireland are not pleased about this situation in the slightest.
Interesting, but looking at the concerns that have been raised, it remains a big deal for both the British government and its people. But why have the talks remained such a complex process, really?
Well, essentially, Britain wanted this done for political expediency. The Conservatives wanted this done also with a sense of politics in the background, not just about what was best for Britain, what was the right thing for the European Union and so on, because there are very few politicians who can genuinely look at the deal on offer and look at the deal that was there before and said, there is a lot of very concrete positives for the United Kingdom. We say things like taking back control and being in charge of our own borders, our own trading destinies. Well, what this is showing us, if we don't manage to come to some kind of arrangement and we end up going to World Trade Organization basic terms, it also shows the rest of the world, the rest of our potential trading partners, that perhaps we can't be trusted with our word. I mean, Prime Minister Theresa May at the time lost her seat because she was incapable of getting that real clarity and arguing her position firmly. The way Boris Johnson got around that was by calling an early election and really going with the idea that people will follow him, with the idea that we will get Brexit done regardless. Well, it seems we are getting Brexit done, but at what cost? What? Re-emergence of troubles in Northern Ireland, perhaps a conversation with our partners globally that say maybe Britain can't be trusted because when you sign a deal, there's still going to be a backup deal at the end of that. There are just so many negative points about how this is being dealt with. And Britain has 2 weeks to try and sort it out and try and get Brussels on side.
Well, which are the concerns that have been raised by the former Prime Minister? But if you would like to paint a picture for us, what could happen assuming the deadline isn't met?
Well, if the deadline is not met, I think realistically, even though the deadline for extending the deadline has passed, I think calmer heads will realize that the only way that this can be resolved amicably and with both sides saving face is to find some way of pushing back a little bit, just some of the larger questions. So we'll again kick those into the long grass. We'll again come back to the negotiation tables, and Britain has to be clear that it will not be redoing legislation, it will not be going back on previously signed terms and conditions, because that clearly sends the wrong signals to our international partners.
But one thing that I'm really concerned about is how this affects the people and the economy, which is, we're seeing that the sterling, is waning by the Brexit concerns.
It is, but let's be honest, in some way, the coronavirus pandemic and some of the other issues surrounding that have actually given this administration some breathing room, because when it comes to the push and shove, you can always say, listen, because of COVID, we haven't been able to deal with this. And because of coronavirus concerns, we have not been able to perhaps meet some of those targets. We have not been able to meet adequately with some of our trading partners. And businesses, well, you can't really use Brexit at the moment to say something has or hasn't failed. But I think where there's going to be a real consideration and a real confirmation of where the governments perhaps erred here is in a 2 or 3 years time down the line, when we've seen recovery from other European partners and perhaps Britain's desire to branch out on its own hasn't backfired. It has backfired because we will be needing global partners more than ever. I mean, if COVID's taught the global community anything now, it's that unity in trying to come to a concerted solution here is the best form.
No, but look at the implication on the people. Are there fears that anything could happen, or, you know, anger could set in if the deal is not being met at the right time?
Well, let me just be very, very, very clear about how I'm going to phrase this, because we don't want to be alarmists. But the fact remains, when you are no longer a part of the single market, when you're no longer able to access free ease of travel of goods and services, this will mean that there will be a backlog of things getting through to your ports. It will mean that goods that are necessary, from food to medical equipment, won't be able to get through your borders as quickly as possible. And if Brexit isn't sorted, with so many people needing to have clarity, firms need to know, what will we be doing? Will there be taxes on our services and goods? Will there be ease of movement for our partners working in Europe and so on? If those questions are not clearly answered by this administration, there is some cause for concern. And like, how will Britain move forward with its shipping, with its manufacturing? We're trying to get its employment up. I mean, these are very, very difficult but important questions that any government needs to be able to answer for the betterment of its entire community. And a lot of conservatives who voted for this present administration may well be disappointed if Boris Johnson can't positively give them the answers that they need at this juncture.
It's always a pleasure to speak with you, Hamina Taylor. Thank you so much for joining us in The World Now.
Thank you. Cheers.